them this land. There are peoples living in the land, but the Lord is going to give the land to Israel, as God promised to Abraham way back in Genesis 12. Now, I want to call your attention to a couple passages in Deuteronomy, because I know some of you are probably troubled, if not all of you, about the violence and about God telling them to go in and show no mercy to anyone and that they are to fully possess the land. Some of that is rhetorical, that's just kind of war rhetoric, and we can kind of see that if that was to be carried out in full, then there'd be no need for commandments about not intermarrying with the children of the peoples that you're going in to conquer, because there wouldn't be anyone left to intermarry with. And so it's rhetorical, but it's making the point that God is giving them this land and they are to be exclusively devoted to the Lord. Now, let me read a few passages for you. First, let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 7. And we see that at verse 2, when the Lord your God gives them to you, these peoples, and you defeat them, then you must devote them to complete destruction. You shall make no covenant with them and show no mercy to them. You shall not intermarry with them, giving your daughters to their sons or taking their daughters for your sons, for they would turn away your sons from following me to serve other gods. So again, I hope you see kind of the irony in that if they are to fully destroy them, then why do you need to worry about commandments about intermarriage? And so some would say that this is evidence that what we're dealing with here is war rhetoric, that they're not to be literally destroyed as much as it is that they are to kind of make sure that they don't interact with them whatsoever. You can do with that what you want, but that's one of the responses. Okay, then we go down to verse 6. For you are a holy people to the Lord your God. The Lord your God has chosen you to be a people for his treasured possession out of all the peoples who are on the face of the earth. It was not because you were more in number than any other people that the Lord set his love on you and chose you, for you were the fewest of all peoples. But it is because the Lord loves you and is keeping the oath that he swore to your fathers, that the Lord has brought you out with a mighty hand and redeemed you from the house of slavery, from the hand of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. Know, therefore, that the Lord your God is God, the faithful God, who keeps covenant and steadfast love with those who love him and keep his commandments to 1,000 generations. But he also brings judgment. Now, the thing I want you to pick up on is that the Lord is being clear, or Moses is being clear. Don't think the Lord chose you and is giving you this land because you're so mighty, because you're so strong, because you're such a great people. No, the Lord's just keeping his promise that you're actually one of the least of the peoples on the face of the earth, but the Lord is merciful to you and the Lord is faithful to what he promised Abraham. So don't get arrogant about being given this land as if somehow you are worthy of it. Okay, then we go over to chapter 9, and these types of warnings continue. So I'm in chapter 9, verse 4. Do not say in your heart, after the Lord your God has thrust them out before you, all the peoples, it is because of my righteousness that the Lord has brought me in to possess this land. Whereas it is because of the wickedness of these nations that the Lord is driving them out before you. Not because of your righteousness or the uprightness of your heart are you going to possess their land. But because of the wickedness of these nations, the Lord your God is driving them out from before you, that he may confirm the word that the Lord swore to your fathers, to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. Know, therefore, the Lord your God is not giving you this good land to possess because of your righteousness, for you are a stubborn people. Okay, and this is really important to get. The Lord is not giving them the land because somehow they are a super righteous people. Very opposite, they're stubborn. And we've seen 40 years of rebelliousness in the wilderness. But rather, the Lord is going to use the Israelites to bring judgment upon the peoples who are already living there in the land. That their sin has reached a level, their guilt has accumulated to where now it's time for judgment. And God is going to use the Israelites to come into the land and to remove these peoples from the land, to bring God's judgment upon them. So this is one of the things that we see happen throughout the Old Testament. God is sovereign over all nations. God is sovereign over all history. And then God is doing this balancing act of justice. And so when one nation gets too haughty, too arrogant, does too much violence, then God raises up another nation to bring that people low, to bring that nation low. And then if that nation gets too arrogant, too haughty, commits too much violence, then God raises up yet another nation to kind of humble that nation. So God is always doing this kind of balancing act of the nations, of the peoples throughout history. And we see this all through the Old Testament. And so here, the Israelites have been down in Egypt while the sins of the peoples in Canaan have been accumulating, have been rising. And finally, they reach a level to where God says, okay, now it's time for justice to come to these people, for them to be humbled. And God raises up the Israelites and brings them into the promised land, and so that these people come under the judgment of God for their atrocities. Same thing's going to happen with Israel, that from this Deuteronomic theology, as we get deeper into the history of Israel, their sin is going to reach such a level that God has to say, wait a minute, they're my people, but that's not me. And so God will raise up the Assyrians to bring low the Israelites. And then God will raise up the Babylonians to bring low not only the Assyrians, but also the kingdom of Judah. God is constantly doing this juggling act. He'll raise up the Persians to humble the Babylonians. So all through the Old Testament, God is at work bringing about some measure of justice on the face of the earth. And empires are good in terms of bringing order and stability, but when their sins reach a level to where now it's more chaos than stability, then God will raise up, or more violence than stability, God raises up a new people, a new emperor, to bring judgment upon that. We see it small scale here with Israel going into Palestine, the land of the Canaanites. We see it larger scale as we get deeper into the Old Testament. So I don't know if that helps you any with kind of the violence and the rhetoric that we see here. The command is show no mercy. Don't know if that helps you any or not. It's pretty uncomfortable reading. But what we see kind of as we step back, that God is at work to bring some measure of justice on the face of the earth. And he'll raise up one people to bring judgment upon another people. And then if that people becomes haughty, arrogant, sinful, God raises up yet another people to bring judgment upon them. And that goes back and forth all the way through. Some have pointed out, God doesn't have much to work with. He's got this empire, this people, and everybody's crooked. Everybody falls short of his glory. So anyways, that's kind of, the Deuteronomic theology as it applies to Israel especially. And then we also see God doing this balancing act all throughout the Old Testament.